What if joy didn't depend on circumstances, achievements, or comfort? What if it was possible to rejoice even in hardship? The book of Philippians reveals a surprising truth. Joy is not something we chase, it is something we cultivate in Christ. Written from a prison cell, this letter by Paul is filled with gratitude, encouragement, and hope. In this video, we'll explore Philippians, uncovering lessons about contentment, humility, and living joyfully in every situation. Overview. Philippians is a letter from the Apostle Paul to the church in Philippi, a Roman colony in Macedonia. Unlike other letters focused on correcting behavior or resolving theological debates, Philippians is warm, personal, and full of encouragement. Paul writes from prison, yet his tone is joyful, hopeful, and deeply relational. The letter emphasizes the intersection of faith and daily life. Paul shows that true joy and peace are rooted in knowing Christ, not in external circumstances. He encourages the believers to stand firm in their faith, to live in unity, and to imitate Christ's humility and service. Philippians blends theology with practical advice. It celebrates God's work in the life of believers while providing a blueprint for Christian living. Rejoice in trials, prioritize others, remain humble, and pursue Christ above all. Historical and social context. Philippi was a Roman colony, a city of veterans and strict social hierarchies. Wealth, status, and public recognition mattered. The church in Philippi was a small but faithful community navigating cultural pressures, persecution, and internal disagreements. Paul writes from a Roman prison, likely in Caesarea or Rome, showing that joy and faith are not dependent on freedom or comfort. His situation also underscores one of Philippians' central themes: true contentment comes from Christ, not circumstance. The letter also reflects the early church's struggles with unity, humility, and generosity. Paul praises the Philippians for their partnership in the gospel while guiding them toward maturity in faith. Key themes in Philippians. Joy despite circumstance. Paul repeatedly exhorts believers to rejoice. Joy is not based on external conditions, but on the presence of Christ in every situation. Partnership in the gospel. The letter celebrates collaboration in ministry, encouraging believers to support one another and participate actively in God's work. Humility and imitation of Christ. Philippians 2 highlights Christ's humility as a model for believers. True greatness is measured by service and selflessness, not status or power. Contentment and trust. Paul emphasizes learning to be content in every situation, relying on God's strength rather than personal circumstances. Perseverance in faith. Challenges, opposition, and suffering are opportunities to deepen faith and witness. Eternal perspective. Paul encourages believers to focus on heavenly rewards and spiritual growth, not temporary success or recognition. Key passages in Philippians. Philippians 1 verse 6, God completes what he has begun in believers. Philippians 1 verses 12 to 14, Paul rejoices that his imprisonment advances the gospel. Philippians 2 verses 3 to 8, humility and Christ-like service. Philippians 3 verses 8 to 14, pressing toward the goal of knowing Christ fully. Philippians 4 verses 4 to 7, rejoice always and receive God's peace. Philippians 4 verse 13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Philippians 4 verse 19, God provides for every need. Relevance Today. Philippians speaks to anyone struggling with worry, discontent, or difficulty. It challenges the idea that joy depends on achievement, comfort, or control. Instead, it teaches that true contentment and resilience come from trusting God's presence and promises. The letter also emphasizes unity and humility in relationships. In a world often dominated by self-promotion and competition, Philippians calls believers to prioritize love, service, and partnership in God's work. Finally, the letter inspires perseverance. Trials are not evidence of God's absence, but opportunities to deepen faith, grow spiritually, and shine as witnesses of Christ's power and peace. Closing thought. Philippians reminds us that joy is a choice rooted in Christ, not circumstance. Even in hardship, fear, or uncertainty, believers can rejoice, serve, and persevere. Paul's message is timeless. When our hearts are centered on Christ, contentment, courage, and hope follow naturally. Joy is not something we earn, it is something we embrace, in every season of life.